and lie that they won't impose a levy, or didn't have a clue but were just promising? Further, assuming without admitting that this is for debt payment, how can you pay $3.1 billion, that is amounting to 80 billion cedis, total debt, with 9 billion cedis, which will accrue by December 2026 from this levy? Is that even feasible? And if indeed this is for debt payment, why are they, after telling us that the debt will be paid by 2026 December, now turning around to say even the levy is not enough? Ladies and gentlemen, the hypocrisy and the ill intent from the beginning has now been exposed by their confusing reasoning. Members of the press, it is very important to know the very clandestine manner in which the NDC sneaked this bill into Parliament without prior notice and rushed it through in the dead of the night, simple to avoid scrutiny. This bill was never advertised on the order paper for the day. In fact, it was not even discussed at the business committee meeting prior. It was not included in the business statement for the week. Instead, it was sneaked through by a one-page order paper addendum, getting to the end of sitting on the said day under a certificate of urgency. And the majority side whipped it through, refusing to pull the brakes for any form of consultation with civil society, driver unions, or everyday Ghanaians. Why would a party that campaign on the grounds that they were championing the interests of Ghanaians now be sneaking tax bills into Parliament in the middle of the night and rushing it through before Ghanaians wake up? Why will a party that claimed they had the Ghanaian interests at heart refuse to allow debate and public representation on tax bills, which they didn't advertise at budget time? Members of the press, the clandestine approach also exposes the ills of the government in this matter and will not be allowed to pass. At this juncture, I will allow my colleague, the ranking member for Economy and Development, to continue. Thank you.
So thank you, Honorable Ranking Member for the Committee on Energy. And he has set the tone by highlighting the very clandestine manner in which the government brought this bill to Parliament. Wasn't discussed at a business committee meeting, wasn't listed on the order paper, it wasn't even mentioned during the budget hearing. And then getting to the end of hearing for the day, an order paper addendum was brought in and it was quickly hurried through. Even efforts from the minority leader to request that we suspend and allow more consultation were refused. And that's why you realize that before its passage, our side had to wash our hands of what was being done to the people of Ghana and leave the chamber. Now, you are beginning to notice that, for example, the Chamber of Oil Distributors are openly calling it out that nobody was consulted. And this was smuggled in and infringed on the people of Ghana. And they've been pushing back, and now government says it will wait for a few days before it still goes ahead to implement it. You are also noticing that the driver unions are shocked and are calling government out for what it has done and are threatening even demonstrations in some instances. Now, we want to take a moment to highlight some things about the levy that, because the people of Ghana didn't get an opportunity to have a full discussion on it, have come up and we think we need to draw your attention to. First is the rate that is being charged. Ghanaians will bear witness that this levy is being charged at a rate of 8% per transaction. 8% per transaction. And this makes it one of the highest tax rates introduced in Ghana in a single instance. If you study the history of VAT and many of our other revenue handles, you will notice that at the first instance of introduction, sometimes it's 1%, 1.5%, or 2%, and then maybe as the years go by, you may find some add-ons and then a consolidation. For this particular levy, at the first instance, the government is charging the people of Ghana 8%. And this is one of the highest rates at first instance in terms of taxation that is being introduced in the Republic. Again, even if this levy wasn't hypocritical, as has been mentioned by my brother, and had an honest justification, why would the government impose a levy with an 8% transaction rate on the people of Ghana? It's just simple wickedness. And to think that this 8% is on every gallon of fuel, actually cascading down to every liter of fuel, to pay for the inefficiencies in the energy sector, is simply a stab in the back of many people who believe the government at their word that they will not impose levies to pay for the inefficiencies in the energy sector. Now, for every 1 gallon of petrol product that you buy or diesel that you buy, this government is, because of this tax, going to take an additional 4 cedis and 50 pesos from you. That is 8%. We recall the NDC's claim that the then MPP government had done no work for Ghanaians when they are transferring their money, and therefore had no business in charging 1% levy on Momo transactions. So we ask you, what is the work that the NDC has done when you are buying your fuel, for which reason they are now charging 8% tax on it? Specifically, let's take a moment to compare this doomsaw levy, the D levy, to the E-levy that was recently repealed. It will be recalled that when the MPP introduced the E-levy, our then colleagues in opposition bastardized it and told Ghanaians that it represented thievery. In fact, they used the expression pickpocketing. Unfortunately, a good number of Ghanaians bought into their propaganda. So let's compare the E-levy to the doomsaw levy, which has now been introduced by the NDC. First, the E-levy was advertised in the budget. It was followed up with town hall meetings, and it onboarded extensive public consultations before the bill was finally passed in Parliament. This doomsaw levy was smuggled through to avoid any form of public engagement, consultation, or scrutiny. It was neither advertised in the budget nor on the main order paper for the day. And that's why we say that this amounts to midnight robbery. The E-levy had an effective rate of 1% per transaction, yet it was described as pickpocketing. This doomsaw levy has the effective rate of 8% per transaction. And that's why we say that it is midnight robbery. The E-levy avoided transactions that were not in excess of 100 Ghana cedis, you will recall. And the argument that was canvassed at the time was that we had to create some room for the very poor to be excluded from it. Yet the E-levy was bastardized. The poor were exempted. This doomsaw levy has no minimum threshold. The poor are actually the most affected because, unlike the rich, for the poor, every single cedi counts a lot more. And that's why we say it's midnight robbery. The E-levy, number 4, was payable only by people who opted to do money transfers. This doomsaw levy is payable by all Ghanaians, unless you decide to work every day. Because even if you're a farmer and you are buying fuel for your tractors to work on your farm, you will pay this doomsaw levy that this government has just imposed. It's payable by everybody. Number 5, while the E-levy had a limited cascading effect, this doomsaw levy has a total 100% cascading effect because it affects transportation. And consequently, any item that is transported, food, clothes, whatever, once you are transporting it, there's a cascading effect that eventually, when we go full circle, will be paid by the everyday Ghanaian. Number 6, the E-levy was designed to yield approximately 2 billion Ghana cedis from persons who elected to do transfers or transactions. Now, colleagues, you are here in Parliament. You will recall the day that the E-levy was repealed. Our good friend, the majority leader, was on his feet, shouting his voice hoarse that the government has put 2 billion cedis back into the pockets of Ghanaians. I'm sure you recall. This doomsaw levy is taking from everybody over 5.7 billion cedis for this fiscal year. So if repealing the E-levy put 2 billion back into the pockets of Ghanaians, what does introducing the Dumsor levy, that takes away 5.7 billion do? In his own words, this government is taking 5.7 billion Ghana cedis from the pocket of Ghanaians. And we think it is very dishonest because if you claim that you are giving Ghanaians 2 billion back, which was so untoward, it was evil by the previous administration, how do you give back 2 billion and take 5.7 billion from the people? It's only the NDC government that does that, justifies it, and expects everybody to say that that is some smart economic approach. We, however, have some alternative suggestions to make to the government, and I'd like to highlight a few of them. The minority believes strongly that if this government is minded to pay off the energy sector debt, because you recall that part of their justification is that they want to pay off the energy sector debt. In fact, the president said he will pay it off by December 2026. And we have just done the maths for you, that if you look at what is going to accrue in the 2 years, it cannot pay off the energy sector debt. But let us assume that they are being honest with that they want to pay off the energy sector debt. We think that what the government should do is to conclude the renegotiations of the of the power purchase agreements which were started by the previous administration, and to pass on two things, the fuel and capacity charges into the PPAs. Government should include these in the tariff calculations to eliminate the need for off-book debts that are caused by the take or pay clauses in the energy sector contracts that were signed between 2013 and 2016. And you will recall that that is one of the major challenges that has created the stock of energy sector debt. The capacity charges and the take or pay charges, which could not be included in the tariffs. And so every now and then a bill is sent to the finance ministry to pay, and that bill is accumulating. If the government is really intended to pay, one of the things it should do is to complete the renegotiation, move the fuel purchases and the excess capacity charges into the PPAs, so that when people consume a certain realistic amount, then they will pay. Number two, government should quicken the efforts to bring efficiency into the operations of GRIDCO and ECG to reduce transmission, distribution, and other technical losses. You have followed the arguments that part of the problem is the losses occasioned during transmission and distribution and collection. If government really means well, that is one of the areas to focus attention and front load. Number three, we're asking government to pursue the strategy that we proposed in 2024 to go heavily into renewable energy, as advertised, for example, in our manifesto, to reduce the need for fuel importation and its consequent negative impacts on the economy. And you will recall that prior to 2024, in the elections, we signaled that if the NPP was in power today, we'll focus heavily on augmenting with solar power, so that this whole thing of buying HFO and fuel for the power plants will be reduced. And you don't have to then come and impose these levies on Ghanaians at 8% to pay for the inefficiencies in the sector, contrary to the promise that you made. In closing, colleagues, it's already clear that the government intends to go ahead with the implementation of this draconian levy, and they will not listen to anybody's plea, anybody's reasoning, or anybody's alternative ideas. We as a minority group representing over 10 million Ghanaians, and sometimes people say, oh, they are just 88. In our 88 constituencies, you will find over 10 million Ghanaians. We want to advertise that we'll be embarking on the following. Number one, we'll continuously engage the people of Ghana, civil society groups, driver unions, and the media to showcase the true impact of this draconian and negative levy that the government is imposing on us. Number two, we'll continue to stand with the groups of honest Ghanaians, the driver unions, the Chamber of Oil Marketers, who are opposing the levy or asking government to pull back and to engage better, and not to go by this midnight introduction into Parliament and using their numbers to push it through. We know the government has a lot of goodwill, but this is not the way to do things. Number three, we'll continue to stand in solidarity with the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies in their position that this downstream sector is already heavily overtaxed. And now if you add this new levy, effectively about 26% of what you are paying at the pump is all taxes. And we'll continue with our advocacy to government to withdraw this levy and adopt less painful and more pragmatic options, some of which we have suggested in this afternoon's press briefing. We are grateful to you for your attendance, and we look forward to further engagements on this subject. We'll take your questions and do a quick summary in chief.
All right, thank you very much. Just please, your name and station.
Thank you very much. My name is Ajana.
Why are you giving the first bite to him?
Yeah, it's for mischief purpose.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We can hear you. It's okay. It's okay.
My name is Ajana. I read for FMD Online.
Can we have some silence here, please?
Two quick questions. Honorable, you.
One question. One.
Okay.
You are many.
Basically, you are asked to come and address us on the economic component of the E-levy. But throughout your explanation, you seem to be highlighting details on the levy. Can you please tell us the economic implication of this E-levy? And as you compare the E-levy to current levy, at the time that E-levy
Can we have a very
was
short
imposed on us, the fuel price then was around 18 cedis. As we speak today, the fuel
So
price
it's
around
huge. That's right.
12 cedis, and even LPG from 50 per kilo. Today, this morning was 8 cedi, 20 pesos. Why do you then compare that to today's situation that government has no business of taxing the fuel company?
Thank you.
Please.
We shall respond to that. There are two questions in that, the economic implications and then the argument that fuel prices are low, so it's okay to slap a tax now. I'll respond to both. Let's take a few more. We'll respond.
Yes, please. Your name and then your station.
So my name is Steven. E-levy. Chronicle and political.com. Yes.
It's okay. We can hear you.
Sure.
We are picking the sound bite.
Because they have this one, it's not going off. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. You alluded to the fact that Ghanaians did not get opportunity to discuss the use of the levy before it was introduced and passed. But then, among the things that you are going to implement, I'm happy that you said you are going to engage various stakeholders, especially those in the transport sector and then others. But I would like to ask you, would you consider doing so by getting closer to them at the various bus terminals, the churches, mosques,
We have started. We have
and other
started.
public places, to let them know the real impact, because that is where they will feel this impact. So when you get closer to them, especially in the morning, and then you engage, then Ghanaians will begin to know that this is what they are going to do, as you have alluded to in this place. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so,
We'll take a few
yes,
more.
Ibrahim. Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, leader. Honorable, first of all, I want you to respond to this because that has been the defense from government that if proceeds of ESLA had been properly utilized by your administration, we wouldn't be here today. And two, in preferring solutions as alternatives to what government has done, you talked about adding these cost items to the power purchase agreement through renegotiation. And that will have reflected in the tariffs that Ghanaians will be paying for electricity. How is that different from what has been?
It's a very good question.
Very, very good.
Very good question. I'll respond to that.
So, how
and
many
then
more do you want to
let's
take?
take a final one and then.
Okay, I'll give him one and I'll use my powers to give you the final one.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. I listened to your question. You calling for...
You listen to...
your presentation, statement. You're calling for total withdrawal. Do we have problem at the energy sector? And what percentage of levy will really help. And lastly, my worry, as you indicated, that he sneaked it in. Looking at their numbers and your numbers, I think there is this developing tendency at your end. Why is it that you said mighty minority, but the numbers over there, to tell Ghanaians that you are widely awake, we don't get the numbers over there. How are you addressing that one too?
See, I wasn't giving you the opportunity. Please. It's not a fair question. What is that? Has that got to? Yes, please. It wasn't there. Yes, please. Is it Metro? Very well. Please proceed.
You mentioned a few suggestions to deal with this. Now, does it change the fact that even though we could renegotiate, we could move the fuel purchases and excess capacity charges, bring efficiency to the operations of ECG and Greenville, we could do all of these things, but it will still not change the fact that we have to pay, maybe at a reduced cost. So if we still have to pay, what would the minority suggest the payment plan or the payment approach or the method be but the taxes?
So let me respond to this
So
first
please
set of
put off your
questions.
microphone.
Oh, okay.
Let me respond to the first set of questions about the economic implications. So again, I'll take you back to the past. When a 1% levy was introduced on transactions that people elect to do, we were told that the economic implications were such that it will bring economic hardship, it will contribute to inflation, it will add to the difficulties of people. Today, an 8% levy has been imposed across board on all fuel, or at least petrol and diesel. As a start, you can clearly tell that as the driver unions are beginning to warn, eventually it will catch up with fuel prices. And when it does catch up with fuel prices, when fuel prices go up, the transmission effect is such that the prices of goods and services generally will begin to go up. Now, secondly, you are asking a question about public engagement. Yes, we intend to engage in various forms. Today we are outlining to you some of the things that we are going to be doing. We are not ending here. We'll be engaging at various levels to get people to understand the real incidence of this taxation and how it affects their daily lives and how it translates into the prices of goods and services as they go up. There was a question about, will passing it through the tariffs be any different? And let me answer. You see, tariffs are not set by government suo motu. Tariffs are set by the PURC. So the government will sign its PPAs and the power producers will go and make a case to an adjudicator who consider all of it and decide how much of it can be passed through. When government chooses not to put the fuel purchase and all the other matters into the PPA, but to do it on the side, to create a debt and then to come and slap you with a levy, there's nobody to look at that and to say that this can be passed on or this should be absorbed by the power producers. And that's the big difference. That's why we're saying that if you really mean well, let it go through the system and let the PURC and other entities have an opportunity to examine it and make a decision what you should absorb and what should be passed on. If government decides to keep it on the side and then charge you 8% to pay for it, you should be worried. There's a question about what percentage of levy will be a good idea. We've been clear. We are not asking for any percentage as a good idea. We are saying that listen to the driver unions and the oil marketing companies and the general public, pull back, engage some more, and find better ways of doing this other than just saying that because we have the numbers in the chamber and because we have goodwill, we will just slap it on people. Now, there was a question about the operations in the chamber. We have our strategies that we use to litigate all sorts of matters in the chamber. When the majority side decides that they will not in good faith advertise ahead of time that we want to introduce this tax. You were all here. You recall when we were approving the finance minister, and we drew his attention to the fact that the claim that he will increase revenue without increasing taxes cannot be true. I'm sure you were here, you recall. And that if indeed he could do that, we support him. Because they knew at the time that what they were saying was not true, on the day that they were going to bring, in fact, the day of the budget, did any of you hear them advertise this particular levy? On the day that the business statement was read, prior to the sitting, did any of you see this on the other paper? So I'm not the one saying it, you are witnesses. Now, when they demonstrate such bad faith that they won't advertise it, they won't let you know, and last minute they'll tell you that we have the numbers, we'll push the numbers through, what are you left with? You have to let them have their way and draw the attention of the public to what they are doing, and that's exactly what we are doing at this point in time. Finally, there was a question on what sort of renegotiation. So, first of all, this issue of energy sector debt is not new. Recall that when we assumed power, it was at $2.5 billion, and the World Bank forecast said that it was going to get up to about $12 billion if nothing was done about it. I'm sure you've all read those reports. What our administration did was to start the process of renegotiation. You saw many times when IPPs were threatened that they'll switch off the power if we don't pay. And our teams, I recall Dr. Amin Anta and other teams at Finance and Energy, had extensive negotiations with them to ensure that they didn't carry through their threat. That is what a government does, so that you keep on the light without necessarily passing on bills to the Ghanaian people. That is the kind of negotiation that we're expecting this administration to put up when the IPP is back, not just to say that we have goodwill, so Ghanaians swallow 8% tariff. There was a question about ESLA and its usage, and that you should blame the MPP for this levy. I'll let Honorable Abuaji handle that.
Thank you. You recall those who are in Parliament. I'm talking about the press who are in Parliament. You could recall that if you go to the Hansard, you will find out that every year the ESLA report comes to Parliament, and they will debate it. After debating before they approve. Have you ever hear or heard that ESLA was mismanaged? No, you didn't hear. All these 8 years, you didn't hear any of it. Currently, the 2024 ESLA report just came to our committee. We've gone through. We want to go into details of it, but we've never find it anywhere that ESLA was mismanaged. That was wrong. So take it as it is. Thank you.
Okay, so we just have the MP for Nsamam Aduajiri and the minority chief to just do a bit of.
I can speak from here.
Yes.
So, leader, they want the feed.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
No, come on, no, use my seat.
Well, okay, so Kojo has dealt with that. Equally, the Honorable George has spoken about it. You know, when one says the bill was not captured by the business statement, indeed it wasn't. But for all of you, I know you've been in this house, you've been reporting for some time now. There is always a generic statement in the business statement that says bills may be admitted. Statement may also be admitted by the speaker. So it could be a defense on the side of the majorities that yes, they can come under that generic statement that often features in the business statement. However, the practice has been where it is the case that a bill is being introduced where it did not feature in the business statement, at least leadership will be carried along. That is why every day we have conclave before we come to the chamber. On that day, on the said day, we had conclave. I was there. The majority leader came in late. The chief whip also came in late. There were other members in their leadership who also came. They did not even cough about it. Nobody told us about it. And then suddenly we saw the other paper addendum on and even the other paper addendum, they only printed copies for themselves. Yes. Yes. They printed only copies for themselves. And I had a reason to confront the clerk that this is a two-sided house. And you print other paper addendum and you give it to only the majority. If you don't have ulterior motive, why would you do this? So clearly, and thankfully now, I'm told they are saying they would implement 16th of June. So confusion, they don't know whether they are moving forward or coming backwards. So this is the reality, and I had to buttress this because I'm in leadership, and I have to give you this privileged information. I thank you.
All right, thank you. You want one more question? Don't worry.
You speak.
No, it will. No, do you want to enjoy from that since they are taking a life?
I don't know
So
if there's a follow-up question.
I'll just give you the final opportunity, please. Yes.
Follow-up
So
question.
just one last one. Joy. No, please. You are not supposed to do that. Not everybody.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I promised him and I've come back.
Just wanted to ask that if you embark on the public education and all of the activities you want to do and nothing changes, if push comes to shove, what happens? I'm sure two options will be available, either legal or you hit the street. Which one is the minority contemplating?
So this one is like you've written the story in your newsroom and you are looking for somebody to wear the cap. First of all, nobody goes to battle by fully announcing the full breadth of their strategies.
Exactly.
Today, what we have done is to inform you that, and there's a very important reason. When bills are introduced here in Parliament, you see them advertised, sometimes we invite memos. This is a revenue bill of a very significant nature, and the government just clandestinely brought it in. As a result, the public has not had an opportunity to come to full terms with its various implications. Look at the questions that some of you are asking. So our first objective is to get people to really fully embrace the full implications of what is going to happen ahead of us. As we go along and as we measure the impact of our strategy, we will inform you of the subsequent ones that we are going to do. There was a second comment that this is justified because fuel prices are low. I'm shocked at that kind of rationalization. Fuel prices will forever be at this level. Check the OPEC forecasts, and you will see the forecast for world market fuel prices. They will never be at this level. Our currency is experiencing a rebound as a result of about 6 different things. Is it always going to be this way? So when you introduce taxes at this time, claiming that fuel prices are low, so everybody should keep quiet, what you are doing is setting up for difficulty in the days ahead. And we have an obligation to draw your attention and have this analysis done in detail. And that's why we are doing so at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have Honorable Michael Aidu, who is going to take us through some tree summary. And he's going to do that for about 5 minutes. Then that would be the end of this presser. Thank you very much. Honorable.
Thank you very much. Your Bishop for.
Well, you're welcome back from Parliament. You had the minority, Kojo Oponkroma, the ranking member on the Energy, on the Economy and Development Committee, and other members of the minority leadership. I'm talking about the 1 cedi levy that has been placed on petroleum products. You heard them criticize the nature of the introduction of the levy itself in Parliament. He says it was clandestinely introduced into the House. Because of this, the minority believes Ghanaians do not know the full implication of this levy, so they took this opportunity to explain the implications of the levy. Mind you, the start date for this levy itself has been rescheduled from today to June 16, when the next pricing window for petroleum prices will begin. Stay tuned to Channel 1 TV. I'm sure that the debate around this levy will continue, and we'll be bringing you all you need to know about this energy sector levy in our subsequent bulletins here on Channel 1 TV. I'm Charles Osukumi. Keep watching.